name is Jessica Crow. I am the founder of Apogee and the host of Change Leader Insights. And I'm so excited because today I have here with me Divya Visentini. She is a growth marketer. She's the founder of Navstella, which is a growth marketing and revenue operations consultancy. And I have so enjoyed getting to know her and meet her over the last couple of months. And we're here to talk about a major shift, a major change that is affecting us all. One of which is AI, but also just really leaning into her background and expertise as a growth marketer and what that means for organizations. And of course, we'll tie it back to the AI component too. But Divya, before we get into today's conversation, can you share with people who are listening and watching a little bit more about who you are, how you got to where you are, and really what's top of mind for you in today's ever changing marketplace?
Oh, Jessica, thank you. First of all, so happy to be here. And you're like you said, getting to know you the last couple of months. It's not surprising that you would be leading a podcast like this and managing one like this because change seems to be in your DNA with all the different roles you seem to embrace and have so many different plates spinning all at once and do it with such grace and professionalism. So thank you for having me. It's such a joy and pleasure. Yeah, change has always been part of my DNA as well. Sometimes, like they say, if you're not ready for change, and change will be thrust upon you. I am a military brat, so I grew up on different bases. Went to 7 different schools by the time I finished 12th grade. I've
Wow.
lived in 3 countries. I speak multiple languages, only not out of for the joy of learning as much as the necessity of learning a new language just to assimilate. So change is something I have embraced my entire life, and it's something that I have come to own in a way, in that change is always happening and it's best to adapt and learn how to evolve and grow into it. And that's sort of been my journey in my professional career too. So although I've been mostly on the consulting and agency side, most of my career, it has been in different roles, different companies, different capacities, leaning into new verticals, and in the digital space, there's always a need to continue to upskill and learn new skills and new crafts. So change is something that I have embraced and something that I feel comfortable helping others manage as well. And in all of our technology implementations, when we're thinking about people and process and technology, it's the people and process part that's most important. Technology is just a tool to enable what people do and
Right.
how we optimize processes. So it's just part of my journey. So it's exciting to be able to share a little bit of that and to also maybe talk to you about what we could as a workforce think about and plan for as we embrace AI in the new way of working.
Yeah, well, it's definitely all around us, but I'm so glad that you're here and with your background and expertise. And I would love to talk, as a someone who's been in that growth marketing, who is well versed in change. Tell us a little bit about what that in particular has looked like for you, at least over the last 5 years, right? As you've worked with customers, worked for organizations. How has growth marketing, I suppose, evolved? And where are you leaning in right now?
Good question. So if you think about it, the CMO role is probably among the newest titles in the C-suite. We always had CEOs, CFOs, CTOs, CIOs, but the CMO as a role is 10 years, 15 years, if that, and it's more prevalent in the last 10 years. And there's a big reason for that. For the longest time, marketing was simply seen as an enablement role. You enabled sales, you went out and branded your company. But digital media, especially social media, where one-to-one engagements and conversations made it possible for companies to now really be able to not just target prospects, but be able to engage with them meaningfully across multiple channels,
Mhm.
follow them, and then convince them to come do business with you. That shift has really upended how we look at the marketing function. And with the advent of major platforms, let's talk, and technology providers, Google, Adobe, we've got big Salesforce, HubSpot. You're talking about platforms that not only enable the marketing function to be somewhat autonomous in that a CMO can take charge and run it, but
Mm.
the technology itself has become easier to implement and adopt into the marketing function. So marketers no longer have to rely on the technology group to have things
Mhm,
happen.
mhm.
Similarly, now that we have digital media that is trackable, measurable, predictable, everything has to do with an ROI function. Marketing is no longer just enabling a sale. Marketing is actually making that sale happen.
Right.
So growth marketing as a function has come to become this very important role, not just for a marketer to think about how they brand, what's your voice to market, how you engage, what's your content strategy, how you segment, but really into that prospecting and lead generation and sales force alignment in a way that is so incredible because it's measurable, it's scalable, it's experimental in that you can learn quickly and change and adapt. So growth marketing as a function has really grown into its own in the last 4 or 5 years. And
Yeah.
I've kind of grown with that as well. And more marketers are being asked to do more than just branding and storytelling. They're being asked to really become more growth enabled. And so CMOs are now sitting more often than not with the CFO of a company. They're sitting more
Right.
often than not with the revenue person of the company or even the CTO of the company. So now it's a very different way of looking at marketing and growth in general.
Yeah, that's very exciting, and I can also, imagine that is a major change and shift for people who have been in the marketing space. Do what would you, I guess, recommend to people who are not quite as far along as you in their thinking, who are going through that change? I mean, how are you using technology to support what you're doing? How are you learning, you're learning, it sounds like, as you go, but also what else are you doing to help yourself navigate and help your team and the people that you're working with navigate that shift from being an enablement function into something more strategic and aligned with revenue or technology?
Yeah, no, that's a really good question. I, for me personally, with the clients I work with and the people I'm engaged with, one of the things I keep encouraging them is to not just be a leader of people, because when you're in leadership, especially director and above, used to be you could just tell people what to do, but
Mhm.
today to be relevant and connected and truly drive strategy. It doesn't matter if you have a C in front of your title or not. You have to also be willing to be a bit of a doer. And that doing mentality comes
Ah,
from certifications. There's so much free information out there. Attend webinars, network. Don't just know and learn about what a tool's potential is or a platform's potential is, but really understand how it works, because that is how you're going to really learn to orchestrate the kind of campaigns you want or the strategies you want to design and develop. I recently wrote a LinkedIn article that kind of discussed this about, are you one of those leaders that stays on the business or are you a leader that stays in the business? And
yeah,
more and more leaders are expected to be in the business,
yeah,
especially when new technologies are being implemented. You have to know what the impact is on your most junior team member. Are they
yeah,
nervous? Are they scared? Do they feel adequate, that they've been given adequate training? Do they understand where their new place is, given that now they're being asked to use a new platform? Is it actually making life easier for them, or are they telling you that that's the case? So unless you really know what the technology is meant to do, you're not really going to be able to embrace it and implement it in a way that makes your team happy. Now, unless your team is not happy, there is no customer strategy, there is no
right.
branding, there is no storytelling. It starts with adoption internally. So learning what a tool's potential is, like when you have demos, that's great, but get in and get your hands dirty. It's very important.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a really important message. And, when I talk about change and leadership, I always remind people that I'm working with that who you are as a leader, how you show up has a direct impact on your ability to be effective and build that team up and have happy customers. And,
Yeah.
even when I was on the industry side, the most effective leaders were those who had put themselves in the shoes of their team, that had gone through and have taken on different roles in the organization and really understood the ins and outs, and then they could also understand where the organization needed to go. The
Yeah.
least effective leaders were those who led by leveraging their title versus their understanding of what their teams needed. And then there was a high turnover rate with those leaders. And so what you're saying has been probably true for a long time. But I think with technology moving as fast as it is, with AI having a significant an impact on the way that we work and how we work, there really is, I don't want to say no excuse, but the call to action is clear. You have to do what you just described. Really get
Yeah.
your hands into it so you can be effective and understand what's working, what isn't, and how to lead your people through that process. Let's talk a little bit about AI then, and kind of what you're seeing here, because this is a change whether you're in the marketing function or any aspect of any function in an organization. People are wondering how to think about leveraging AI, what it means for them, job roles, how those will change. There is quite a bit of fear. I think a lot of it has to do with just not understanding or knowing enough. They haven't gone through that process potentially of upskilling or learning more. But since this is a learning podcast in many ways, what's your take on AI, and what are you seeing and how are you thinking about adapting to this major change that is affecting organizations everywhere?
Such a timely and good question, Jessica. AI, to your point, is everywhere. There is no turning back the clock. We either go with the flow or you're going to be swimming against the tide. I mean, the current. You just have to figure out which way you want to swim. It takes me back to when we first had a smartphone come into the market and we had social
Mhm.
media sort of starting to take root. And for the longest time, we had leadership folks in leadership in different companies going, that's for the youngsters. Let them do what they want to do.
Mhm.
Let them make their little videos and talk to each other, but it's not for our business. And it's
Mhm.
a little bit of that. We've all been using AI, whether we're aware of it or not, in for a long time. I don't think there are very many people that don't have a Netflix subscription.
Right.
Netflix is the entire business model. The fact that the movies or shows that they recommend, the reviews and ratings, the algorithms that work behind the scenes to then tell you
Yeah.
which
It's
other
all
show you
machine
might be
learning.
interested in,
Yeah.
it's AI. When we put our iMaps or our Waze maps or our Google Maps and start driving, and we suddenly are told to take a detour, it's because there's enough data in the system for us to know, for it to tell us to then take a detour. So AI has been in our lives all the time. We just haven't given it that name or haven't had that realization. It's now
Yeah.
when we have specific names for tools that we are expected to use, whether it's ChatGPT or Claude or any of
Yeah.
these, that we're becoming a lot more aware because it's now literally in our workspace. And we're being
Mm.
asked to use it versus us wanting to use a mapping tool
Mhm.
or want a Netflix recommendation. It's a little like push and the pull. I believe with AI that what I'm seeing from the clients I work with on a daily basis is those that are not scared of AI are those that are wanting to do more. Like they're the people that
Mhm.
go, if only I had 2 more hours in the day, I could actually
Mhm.
be doing fill in the blanks. I could be developing a
Mhm.
strategy or a new campaign plan, or I could go back to the old campaign and look at what we did wrong so I can then plan for a better campaign next time. Or I'll actually have 2 hours to sit down and craft some meaningful content for my next white paper. It's those
Mhm.
people that are looking at AI today as means to take away some of those, boring, repetitive things like, why would I want to have to do this over and over again when I can have a tool
Yeah.
that will do it for me?
Right.
The people that are nervous about AI are those who take comfort in that.
Yeah.
I like it. This is what I'm good at. I'm predictable. I can be counted on to produce 100 of these in 2 days. But
Yeah.
if we got a platform for you, or a tool for you, we can do that in 4 hours. And what would you do with the other day and a half?
They
It's
don't
people
know.
that don't know what to do that
Yeah.
seem to be perceptibly more nervous about what AI will do for them or to them. And
Yeah.
I think it
Yeah.
really comes down to then, as managers, have a responsibility to, you can't just implement a tool without having some sort of a game plan for either training up people, which is very vital, because I can't be put in a car and told to drive if I don't know what the steering wheel does or where the brake pedal is, right?
Mhm.
I have to have some instruction on what it'll do. But I also need to have some level of a promise. Hey, if you walked, it'll take you 30 minutes. If you drove, you'll be there in 5 minutes. So there has to be that
Right.
reward system things. And then what would you do with the other 25 minutes? I would like for you to, as part of your promotion, then lean into doing these new things so that you clear up your space. So now you have a trajectory. So when it comes to AI, not only do managers have a responsibility to look at where they can implement AI technologies to speed things up, drive efficiency, be able to scale with a level of predictability, be able to minimize human errors,
Mhm.
any of those, use cases, if you will. But most importantly, they have to have a game plan for what they're going to do with their workforce. And at Navstella, we have this framework called the Clarity Five. It's our 5-step
Mhm.
growth marketing framework, and we call it
Mhm.
Clarity because it literally helps in clarifying to a client what they need to focus on. Because there's a lot of times we think of, oh, I would like to go move into the California market, but I'd also like to introduce a new service offering. Now, you're kind of stretching yourself in two different directions. Let's help you refocus. And so we use this as a way to implement a measurable and tangible way, but also to help guide. And it's a very, very important part because one of the things with AI is to literally have a AI literacy plan where the
Yeah.
organization or a client or a leader has to know how they're going to use this tool and whether they need training, they need certifications, invest in that.
Mhm.
Equally, it's very important because today there's so many questions and concerns around ethics, around
Right.
privacy. So confidence is a very big part of AI adoption as well. So you need to be very clear on the rules around how we will use data. What are the privacy policies of our company? What are the compliance policies that we have to abide by? If I know the size of my sandbox, then I'll feel
Yeah.
very confident in playing inside that sandbox. So companies that just have a new tool and then have people just figure it out seem to
Right.
be struggling with it a lot more and finding a lot more resistance because especially junior level people don't want to be called to be put in a situation where they have that much responsibility to figure out compliance or the privacy issues. It's too much to
Right.
ask for. Yeah.
Yeah, there needs to be a bigger picture strategy is what you're saying, and I
Yes.
that makes a ton of sense, and I love that what you offer is that clarity to the clients that you work with, how to think about this, how to create the guardrails, so even though there's ambiguity, you at least have borders to that ambiguity, and that creates, the foundation from which you can learn, but in a safe way.
Yeah.
Um, I think one of the things that struck me with some of the clients and just through my network and the conversations that I'm having, and you touched on this, is not only do they have to get smart on understanding privacy compliance, learning how to leverage the tool, the literacy, but it's also that piece of what do you do now that you have that extra time? And
Yes.
I'm using air quotes here, but because even before AI was as prevalent and part of the everyday conversation, some of the clients that I was working with, we were like rolling out a new ERP, for example. This is a very basic technology, example. They had this understanding or belief that all of the time they were getting back from all the manual processes and disparate processes that they were replacing, that the team would just use that for strategy and higher order activities. And that was the communication. What happened was they didn't know how to better leverage and utilize the individuals on the team. The people on the team who had been doing those manual tasks, they were like, well, now what? And so there was a lot of tension and lost productivity. And it just created an environment where nobody really knew what they were supposed to do next. And so
Yeah.
it's not just, when we talk about how we're going to use our time, we really have to be thinking about not necessarily like we still have to be forward thinking with that because of how the rules and the game is changing. Like, what do we do now? There has to be a ton of thought there, I think, to really be successful with the
Oh,
change. And that's usually not where people are thinking.
not at all. I'm right now working with a client, and it's such a joy because she's very open-minded about how to solve for this. And so
Yeah.
she and I have partnered at the hip to try and figure this out. And she has a small team. She only has 6 people on her team, but her company just now acquired another company. And she's
Mm-hmm.
inheriting 3 more people. But what she's being asked to do for 2025 in preparation also for 2026 is beyond the capacity for her now 9 plus her 10-member team, right?
Right.
And so she came to me because she said, I want clarity because I want to know where to focus on. But most
Mm-hmm.
importantly, I know I don't have the budget to go and hire more people.
Mm-hmm.
And I need to create cohesion because the 3 people that I've inherited come with a sense of working together, and they have a sense of brand purpose from the other brand. My
Mm-hmm.
team of 6 have always worked together. They work well, but they're somewhat
Mm-hmm.
junior to mid-level. Nobody, I don't have any senior people, but they have the
Mm-hmm.
hunger, and they're smart, but I
Yeah.
don't know how to guide them. So what we're working on is somewhat backwards and said, okay,
Yeah.
if these people, so let's work with what your priorities are, campaign to market. What are your sales and revenue goals that you need to have achieved? So, we have that as a goalpost. Now
Mm-hmm.
let's back into your team today and what they do. And
Mm.
can they really meet up to what you need without spending any more? Because we know her budget is her budget. The company
Right.
just spent a whole lot of money buying this other company, make more with less. You know,
Right. Right.
the theme of 2025, make more with less.
Yeah.
So what we're working on now is to literally figure out where do we want from a growth plan for these individuals? What would they look like 1 year from now?
Mm.
So that we can retain this talent because we know this talent is valuable and they're
Mm-hmm.
committed, but they all want to be in a better position
Mm.
1 year from now.
Right.
So each and every one of them, we just deployed a survey a couple of weeks ago, and I've followed up with interviews to sit down with them and say, if you had to take away 3 things in your day to day so that you free up your time to get yourself to this next role, and the
Mm-hmm.
next role requires for you to be able to do these 5 new things or 4 new things,
Mm-hmm.
what would that look like? So they themselves are coming to us and saying, I don't want to have to create, campaign creative over and over and over again manually. Is there a way to
Yeah.
automate that? So once I have the messaging and the design that you can mesh it so I
Plug
can
and
ready
play. Yeah.
campaign. One of them talks about monthly tracking of data. I have to go and scrape data from 5, 6 different places. It takes me a
Mm-hmm.
whole day. Is there a way to automate that so that I have the data to just analyze and spit out the report? Another
Mm-hmm.
one wanted exactly that, reporting. Can you have a different way for me to spit out my reporting? So they themselves are now volunteering things that they believe can be automated and
Yeah.
digitized and digitalized. So it's a
Yeah.
self thing. And I love this because now you have your team involved. And of course, we
The
can't make every
ownership.
wish come true, but
Right.
then we'll have to wait and see the impact ROI on every one of those things. But the fact that she's thinking of the people growth in terms of how we can use technology to enable that growth and giving them a sense, I always call it a sight of land. Change
Mm.
requires for people to either be able to see land or at least have a sense for where that land is, which direction it's in, right?
Yeah.
If I
Yeah.
don't know I'm sailing toward land, if I'm in open waters and I have no idea where land is, I'm going to be spinning there. My ship is going to be going in circles. But if I kind of have a sense of it's 2,000 miles away, but it's northwest, I at least know
Yeah.
what my bearings are. So that sight of land is very important. Now we're setting that for these individuals that 4 quarters from now, your site of land is this. You will see
Yeah.
and you will be able to make land at this place, at this point. How can we back into it to enable technology, especially AI, to help you get there? So we will ask more of you, but we'll also help you get there.
That's cool. It's like you've got the vision for the future and then you're reverse engineering it and you're creating ownership
Correct.
along the way. I love it. That's
Correct. Yeah.
that's like change management right there, right? How
Yeah.
else so I love that example. Thank you for sharing that. How else
Sure.
have you leveraged change management as a change leader, as supporting change leaders in organizations? Do you see that as a critical moving forward with technology with AI? Do you see it even adapting because of AI? I mean, how might what change management looks like evolve along
No,
with the evolution of using technology.
it's a really good question. I'll tell you, Jessica, that one of the biggest changes that has happened because of technology is departments that had their own budgets worked in silos for the longest time. And a lot of times, any kind of inefficiency we saw or wastage we experienced was because sales will do what sales needs to do, marketing will do what marketing needs to do, account or client services will do what they need to do. And you don't have teams really talking to each other, but they're all stepping on each other's toes,
Absolutely.
right? So technology today, whether it's large platforms or AI, it's all about connectedness. It's all about pipeline. Your data, it doesn't live just in arbitrarily out there in the universe. The data is
Mhm,
it's in any given time is part of a continuum. And
mhm.
that means it's a continuum of teams and departments and
Yes.
accountability and budgets. So because of that, the biggest change that people are having to do is not only be open to collaboration and communication, but also now start becoming accountable to other teams, not just to your boss or your
Right.
team, but marketing is accountable to sales. Sales is now accountable to marketing. Marketing needs to be accountable to
Mhm,
finance and vice versa. So accountability is part of the new change paradigm. And what makes it
mhm,
interesting or challenging is a lot of companies are still remote. Several of them are going hybrid. Some are in person.
mhm,
So
mhm,
as a people, and like let's just talk about our country as a people, we are in different time zones, different office situations. So but we all have this one platform or two platforms that we
mhm.
rely on. So AI and technology is really it forcing us to change, not just to be more communicative and more collaborative, but also more accountable. And some
Yeah.
people struggle with that.
Yeah. Well, it's a different way of working what you're describing.
Yeah.
And it really is, it's changing, it's going to change the game for how leaders behave in the workplace because being accountable to a boss, having autonomy over your own budget, there's historically that people land grab, right? Like there's a lot of this is mine in the workplace, and what you're describing is a different level of it's more like how do you make decisions that support the collective versus not, and technology is enabling that, and that does increase everyone's accountability to do things right, well, and in a way that um yeah is universally beneficial. So that's cool. I'm excited. I personally I love that there's that technology and AI is enabling all of this. I think um it's going to be interesting times, but I'm here for it. I love change, so I'm
There you
excited to
go.
see where things go.
Yeah.
Um, any final words of wisdom for people who are listening, watching, just, the community that tunes in? They are leaders in their organizations. They are up and comers. They are change managers. They are individual contributors, and everyone's sort of thinking about how to navigate and be a part of, in a positive way, change in the workplace or in their communities. Um, any any final thoughts for someone who is on their own change journey, trying to process all of the change while also be a leader in their whatever space they play in?
That's a good question. And and this is something that I say to myself too, because
Mhm,
it's very easy to become enthusiastic, especially if you're someone like me who embraces change, who
mhm,
runs into it because that's just how I am. And it's not for everybody to do, but it's who I am as a person. The reminder to myself and to everyone, especially new managers who are now coming into their own and becoming responsible for people and technology, don't let your enthusiasm and or sometimes the pressures to perform, we have numbers to hit, we have goals to get to, anything, especially change is so much more successful when it's done with love and empathy. And
I
so
love it.
being able to come at it with some level of love, saying it's not going to be easy, but we'll do this together, a sense of camaraderie, a sense of teammanship, sense of family, that's important, but also empathy. Not everybody is going to embrace the change or a new technology at the same pace as you. Just because I am excited doesn't mean everyone around me is just as excited. And so
Yeah,
being self-aware about that is very important. So love and empathy before anything else. And so even if you have difficult, challenging numbers to reach, or your smaller team that you're asking so much of to make those outcomes happen, love and empathy go a long way.
yeah, yeah. Oh, and even that starting with oneself, right? Love and empathy
Yes.
for our own experience, then we can provide that to others. But what
Yes.
a what a wonderful way to end this conversation. Thank you for that
Thank you.
beautiful parting message for people who are tuning in. Divya, this was lovely to talk to you again. Thank you so much for sharing your wisdom with the Change Leader Insights community. I have no doubt this is going to be a highly listened to and watched episodes. So thank you so much. And yeah, have a great rest of your day and keep doing all the great things that you're doing.
Thank you, Jessica. This has been such a joyous conversation and great questions. And thank you for what you do. This podcast is so incredibly powerful and meaningful, and change is something that's scary, but little by little, you're enabling and encouraging people to embrace that. And thank you for having
Yeah.
me. It's been a joy.
Yeah. Well, likewise. Thank you so much.
Thank
All
you.
right. Yeah.
Bye
Take
then.
care.